2008, I was the first person to do anything, okay? Okay. I was fired. They said, get out of here. People are lazy and people are greedy. It's that simple, guys. All around the world, most schools, not all schools, there are some really good schools out there, but most schools are failing in their mission. School sucks. And so the question for us today is, why is this the case? And so we're going to use game theory to analyze why this is the case. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell you a story about myself. So the year is 2008. I went to Yale College, okay, in the United States, and I was an English major. I did very well in school. So I was hired in 2008 to go to Shenzhen in South China and help the school, Shenzhen Middle School, build an international program to send kids abroad, okay? So this is 2008, which was a long time ago. And back then, not that many students wanted to go abroad. There were really few international schools. So the first thing I did was I looked at the situation at the school, okay? And this is what I found, okay? I found that students, even though they were going abroad, maybe about 10% of the students were planning to go abroad. So that's about 80 students each year. That's a lot. But the way they were going about the process of studying abroad was problematic. Okay, so first of all they were doing was taking regular Chinese classes. And you know, in Chinese classes, all you do is you sit in a room of 50 kids and you just take notes and then you take tests. You don't communicate, you don't ask questions, you don't debate. Okay, so that's one problem. Another problem is that the students were spending all their time memorizing SAT word lists. Okay, they were not reading, they were not writing, they were just memorizing words. And the other thing that they did to make their applications look good is model United Nations, okay? And that's fine. Maybe some of you are modeling United Nations, and that's a good activity, but everyone was doing it. There was absolutely no differentiation. All right? So I looked at the situation and I said, no, I mean, you might be able to get into a good American university because, you know, these kids are very smart. But I wanted them to do well at the university and to do well in life. Okay? So I made certain changes to the curriculum and to the school. Okay, so first thing I did was I set up a seminar system. So rather than Chinese classes, I invited these American teachers to come and teach seminars like we have at this school where 10, 20 kids are in a room and they discuss books that they read together. Okay? Rather than SAT word memorization, I had them read books. Students were required to read a lot of books. In fact, I established a 5,000 book English library at the school where students can just go and borrow books and read. I wanted to teach students the joy of reading. And then in terms of activities, I didn't want students to do model United Nations anymore because I didn't want kids sitting around just talking. I wanted to let them do things, okay? So I set up two new activities. The first is called the Coffee House. And the Coffee House is the first coffee house in China, in the Chinese high school. There are lots of coffee houses today, but I was the first person to set up a coffee house where students had to run a business. They had to work as waiters and provide good service to customers. And it was a collaboration effort. As you can imagine, this is great for the students to learn collaboration, to learn finance, to learn entrepreneurship. Okay, so that was a very successful activity. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, was that like similar with our Moon Coffee, like the coffee in the South store?
Okay. 2008, I was the first person to do anything. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Just
No,
I mean,
just
yeah.
similar.
Yeah. All right. So the coffee house was an activity I set up, which was very successful. And it's still there today, guys. If you go to Shenzhen Middle School, you will see the coffee house still there a long, long time after I went away. The other thing I did was something called the daily newspaper. And this was the first daily newspaper in China. in a high school, and probably maybe even around the world, where students every day had to report, collect information, write articles, edit it, and publish it. And they worked until like midnight, sometimes until 2 a.m. And then at 7 a.m. they had to get up and deliver the newspaper to all the students. And these were two very successful activities. And so I understand game theory, and I says, okay, if you want to make this transition from the old system to the new system, you also have to establish a new culture to allow these activities to flourish. Okay? And so my three major principles were transparency, innovation, okay, transparency, innovation, openness. And so my idea was this: rather than set up a curriculum that was perfect, it would be a curriculum that would evolve over time. We would learn mistakes together, we would admit these mistakes, and then we would correct them together. And that's what learning is. Okay, so the idea of transparency. Also, I made changes all the time, which created some chaos, but there's a time for us to reflect and to be resilient. And I was very open and honest about everything that I was doing. And so this system, in a very short amount of time, even though there were a lot of problems in the beginning, it became a very effective system after a semester or a year. And not only that, the students who went for this program did very well in life. They went to Yale, they went to Wharton, Cornell, and this program at Middle School became the most famous program in South China. And when our students had the best record of college admissions in South China. Okay? So this sounds great, right? Okay, the problem is this. The problem is what happened after I established the program. The first one that happened was, okay, I was fired. They said, get out of here. Okay? Second of all, the teachers, the parents, the students were all happy to see me go. They were like, get out of here. We never want to see you again. The third thing that happened was I did come to Beijing and set up a new program that was very similar to this, okay? But after that, after 4 years of doing this and being very successful at this, I was never allowed to set up another program again. No one wanted me to work in management again, okay? So even though I was successful, even though I worked really hard, even though I was innovative, even though I set up really the best study abroad program in all of China, I was the first, everyone else copied me afterwards, I was fired, no one wanted me to stay, and I was not allowed to do this ever again. Why? Okay? Well, the reason is this. When I was doing this, the word that everyone used to describe me was not reformer, not visionary, not idealist, not dreamer, but dictator. Okay? Or another word that they used that was more common was, this guy's an asshole, okay? This guy's a complete asshole. Why? Because I insisted on fairness. Okay? I don't care who you are. I don't care who your parents are. I want you to work hard and learn. And as you can imagine, that pissed off a lot of powerful people. Because that's not how the game is played in China. Okay? It's actually not how this game is played anywhere in the world. The game is not fair. The game is established by stakeholders, and they play the game according to their interests. Okay? So, let's go over what happened. All right? Okay, so I understand that there are stakeholders. And the stakeholders in game theory are just the players. Okay, the players. And who are the players? Well, you have the students. You have the parents. You have the teachers. You have the administrators, okay, the school leaders. You have the government. Okay? And then you have the colleges. Okay, the colleges are the US colleges where I'm trying to send my students. Okay, so these are the players in the game. And if you want to understand game theory, you need to understand the motivations and interests of all the different players. That tells you why or how they will behave the way they do. Okay, so look, so here is my original understanding of the players, which was clearly wrong, okay, because I got fired. All right, so the students wanted to like love to learn, get into Ivy League, and be the best, okay? So I thought the students, what their motivation was to be the best possible person, to work hard, to love learning, to be famous, to get an Ivy League, okay? Clearly this is wrong, okay? But I'm saying back then what my thinking was. The parents, well, the parents wanted successful kids who were independent, okay, independent. And they wanted face, right? So they want their kids to get into the Ivy League. All right? Teachers. Well, teachers wanted to do a good job, right? They want to teach students. They love teaching. They love students. They just want to be given the space and the opportunity to teach what their passion is. Okay? Administrators. Administrators, I really didn't like administrators, so I just thought they just wanted good results. Okay, that's all. Good results. As long as I provided good results, they're happy. Okay, the government, they wanted innovation, they wanted good workers, they wanted, they want technology. Okay, they want a strong China. Colleges wanted the best possible potential. Okay, they wanted students who will be the leaders of the future. Okay, so 2008, when I set the program, this was my assumptions about who the players were and what motivated them. Okay, clearly, I was wrong about who they were. Okay. So let's go over again. Let's now do an analysis of what they really want. Okay, and the easy answer is that in game theory, all the players, what they're motivated in is by achieving the best possible results by doing the least amount of work possible. Okay, just remember that. That's a principle here. Everyone wants to achieve the best results by doing the least amount of work possible. People are lazy and people are greedy. It's that simple, guys. Okay? So students, they want to get in the Ivy League, but they didn't want to work hard to get in the Ivy League. They wanted to do as little work as possible. And if it meant they had to work hard to get in the Ivy League, they're like, I don't want to get in the Ivy League then. I'll just get into another school because who cares, okay? The best possible result, least possible work. Parents are like, yeah, I can have my kid work hard, but what's important is for me to control my kid, right? Because only I know how to ensure my kid succeeds. So I don't want my kids to think critically or be independent. I want my kids to obey me. Now teachers are like, listen, this is a job, man, okay? I have kids. I don't want to work hard. I just want to come to school, do what I'm supposed to do what is minimally required of me to collect my salary, and then go home. I don't want to teach my passion because I don't have any passion. Okay? Administrators are like, oh my God. What's important is for me to make sure the powerful parents are happy. I don't care about everyone else. I don't care about poor parents. I don't care about middle-class parents. As long as the parents who are powerful are happy, I can keep my job, right? The government is like, you know what? I don't want innovation in this country. Even though I say I want it because I don't want problems in life, okay? I just want things to just stay the way they are and everyone's happy. Okay? So now we understand what happened. All right?